Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'm going to do a breakdown of Fargo Season 4, Episode 4, The Pretend War. It gets a little creepy. There's some dread lurking around in the background. We learn more about Orietta's modus operandi as the two criminal factions try to sort out what's really going on and how to make the right moves to hold on to their power. A real quick spoiler warning, if you haven't watched Episode 4 yet, then this video won't be for you. Hit subscribe, go get caught up, and then come back to watch this recap and review. Now, let's get started. I mentioned in my video for the last episode that I was picking up some supernatural vibes from Swanny's talk of the devil and a possible family curse. This week, after a creepy intro that takes a look around the King of Tears Mortuary after hours, we visit Ethelrida in her room. She hears something that prompts her to take a look outside her door, and when she looks, she sees a ghost-like man, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, something unworldly, sitting on the staircase. We don't get any more information here, but we do see another ghost encounter when Zelmare is washing the money in the tub, so I'll come back to this at the end of the video. In an over-the-top scene, the Cannons trap a Fadda truck inside a ring of fire. I'm not sure how possible something like this is, but have to say, it looked pretty menacing. They end up burning the driver, but only brand the cheek of Constant Calamita with the barrel of a gun to send a message. Again, I'm not sure about the whole ring of fire, but I did find it funny that after they took the truck, they just drove it through the fire to leave. This prompts another sit-down meeting between Abel and Dr. Senator. Things are flipped this time with the Italian taking care of the monologuing. He shares his immigrant experience and how he didn't understand the phrase American values that he kept hearing after he arrived. Over time, he decided that to be an American is to pretend. Adopt the attitude that you have a right to be here and that you've always had a right to be here. He can accept that, but can't pretend that the two factions are at peace when they're actually at war. Here's the thing though, he's there about the truck robbery, but doesn't know it was done in retaliation. The Cannons are reacting to the Spring Street stick-up that Zelmare and Swanny pulled off, and the failed hit on Loy's oldest son, Lemuel. Abel is unprepared since he doesn't know that Gaetano is making moves behind Josto's back. And to this point, no one knows what's going on with the fugitives. In their conversation, Doctor makes it plain. It seems to me you ain't tracked in on all the critical goings-ons in your house these days. Across town, it appears that Josto learned Orietta's name and where she lived because they're going at it with a little erotic asphyxiation thrown in for good measure. This seems to have heightened the pleasure this time around, but I can't help wondering if this is the kind of thing you would want to get into with this kind of character. Their post-coital conversation gives us some insights into Orietta's inner world. She loves the idea of going to Istanbul and really doesn't like cursing, saying, "Sleep with a mouthful of razors, it's your own throat that gets cut." He explains that he won't be traveling to Istanbul anytime soon. After all, he needs to stay in town and watch over his family. He's in charge. Although he would like some more fluffy whiz-bang if she's got it, and he confesses he wants to kill Dr. Harvard. Orietta claims she's an enemy to no man, but come on, we know that's not true. As he's leaving, Ethelrida shows up at the door to ask if she can take Orietta up on her offer of a house cleaning job. Orietta tries to brush her off because she's on her way to work, but Ethelrida is able to persuade her. Things go well until she does the one thing she wasn't supposed to do. She looks inside the hall closet where she finds a stockpile of drugs, a box full of obituaries that are all clipped out, and all sorts of personal effects like medals, glasses, and jewelry. It might take the Smutny girl a minute to put things together, but as viewers, we know what we're looking at. Orietta apparently keeps trophies from all her kills, and from the looks of things, there's a lot of them. Considering that Ethelrida left her notebook behind and took what was probably the worst trophy that she could have chose, Donatella Fadda's ring, it shouldn't be long until Orietta knows that she knows about her secret. When Josto was leaving, he ran into Rabbi Milligan and found out that Gaetano had ordered him to kill Loy Cannon. This has him head straight over to confront his younger brother, firing several shots in the office before getting him to back down by training the gun on his brother's private parts. It's an effective display of power for the time being, but it's hard to imagine it's the end of the matter. After talking with Dr. Senator about his conversation with the Fadda concierge and deciding that the robbery at Spring Street was just some crime, Loy goes looking for Rabbi himself. Maybe it's because they talked before, or more likely, it's because he thinks he can use the fact that the Faddas aren't his blood to his advantage. There's no way that Rabbi can help him get Satchel back. It's just not possible. So after cutting his hand, Loy makes himself clear. Anything happens to my boy, either of my boys, it's going to be like you killed them. So Rabbi is the one guy who actually is taking care of Satchel, but he's also on the hook if the Fadda family does anything that hurts him or his brother. At the Kansas City Police Department, we watch as Otis fails in an attempt to get rid of Marshal Duffy. He has an informant come in and do a terrible job of saying that he overheard Zelmer and Swanee were on their way to Chicago, and Duffy isn't swayed. He explains that he works at a federal agency, which means that he can just make a phone call to their office in Chicago and let them know. He tells them Kansas City was my mandate and Kansas City is where I'll stay. Otis then has no choice but to let him come along to the Fadda headquarters, where he tells them he's going to speak with a different informant. While the marshal's waiting in the car, Gaetano's angry pacing out front catches his interest. He approaches the gangster and while snacking on some carrots, tells him a story about some Italians that tried to come to Salt Lake City. He says they tried to make our sons junkies and our daughters whores. They were dissuaded of that notion with a noose and some horses, adding that they must have dragged them 6 or 7 miles before their heads popped off. While this kind of talk might intimidate your average citizen, I think it probably comes off more like a challenge to Constant and Gaetano. Seems like this won't be the last time we see these three face off. Things wrap up with Zelmer delivering a bag of cash to her brother-in-law from the robbery. She did her best to clean the puke off it at the hotel, as Swanee is in bed recovering from eating the pie. Their meeting is a nice moment between these two characters that certainly feels like it's setting up something less pleasant. Zelmer may be a criminal, but we get a chance to see that she cares about her sister and her family. Unfortunately, she robbed Loy Cannon to pay their debt to Loy Cannon. Her unsuspecting brother-in-law heads straight over to the house to drop off the bag of cash. He's met with the barrel of a shotgun at the front door, which ensures he's afraid and uneasy throughout the conversation. He's basically squirming the whole time. The whole thing is suspicious, and after Thurman leaves, Loy gets a whiff of the puke and knows this is some of the money that was stolen from him. With the crushing debt lifted from his shoulders, Thurman comes home to celebrate. The feeling doesn't last because Debrell figures out right away how this all came to be. She knows that her sister's involvement means that this could all lead to a disaster worse than being in debt for the family. The episode ends as her dad tells Ethelrida that things will be alright, it'll all blow over soon enough, but we can tell he's having a hard time convincing himself that's the case, just as he says it. I think this was on par with the last episode. I mean, overall, it felt more like setup than anything else. It all seemed necessary, if not entirely satisfying, but I liked the tension in a lot of these scenes and that feeling of dread sneaking in there. It all worked well. Things are moving around, putting themselves in place, and a hot war is just barely being held off by the power struggle on the Fadda side and the caution on the Cannon side. At the same time, everything else is conspiring to make sure the violence escalates. And now there are ghosts as well. Last week I mentioned that the hints of the supernatural inside the King of Tears made me wonder if the man in the street at the end of episode 1 was connected. I think we could say yes to that after seeing the figure on the stairs. We didn't get a great look at the one in the hotel or the one in the street, but if they're not the same exact ghost or whatever we want to call it, then they're definitely connected. Abel showed us that he can give as good as he gets, and his monologue was right up there with Dr. Senator's from last week. I guess he'll be going on a trip to Kiss the Ring in New York, which may turn out to help in getting their house in order. He seems like the most reliable of Josto's men, so his being away might also lead to more stress in their sorting out who's in charge, the ape or the pipsqueak. Ethelrida and her parents continue to be the most sympathetic characters, but Zelmer was elevated up to the same level as her partner this week, putting them right there in that same category. Together, this bunch also seems to be the people who are most at risk, and I don't see that getting any better. Rabbi continues to be one of the most interesting gangsters, and now he's in a tough position from all sides. He's got to threaten his own house with Gaetano, and now Loy Cannon has his eyes on him as well. Defi and Oraetta continue to be the most fun to watch. If a man's pud needed a tug, would this be the place for said tugging line was one of the best from this episode, and it will be interesting to see what Orietta's next move is. I imagine her attention will focus itself on Ethelrida now that she knows her secret, but Josto did bring up the idea of wanting her boss, Dr. Harvard, dead. And, she has a disposition where she likes to kill people. The only direct callback that jumped out at me was the mention of Mort Kellerman. We heard Loy say that he wanted to send him some of the guns in Fargo. This is a character that showed up in a flashback in Season 2 in the Fargo underworld where he was killed off by the Gerhardts. With that, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments. Where do you think this season is heading, and what are you hoping to see? Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.